Hello and welcome to Patrick's Models and Transport and History today. I'm visiting the Museo della Centuriazione Romana. So, it's the museum of the Roman grid in the northeast of the province of Padova. So here we have a series of the reconstructions of surveyor instruments used by the Romans. Here we have the rolls of papyrus. This is also, children have a look here, these are the famous wax tablets that we're writing on and then they would rub off. And this area, this is a particular area, and I'll show you exactly where we are on this map. Here we are near Padova, right there, northeast of Padova. And in this area, the Roman grid layout of the fields, which we see here in this reconstruction, and here we see one of the delimiting stones, it remained intact because it wasn't damaged and destroyed by the big floods of the Brenta River, which changed its bed at the end of in the early Middle Ages at the fall of the Roman Empire with big flooding. And so we actually have the perfectly preserved grid layout of the fields and roads. So we have these fantastic Roman roads straight at right angles. And now we're going to have a quick look at all the different techniques. And here there are a series of replica tools. These are from Roman artefacts. This was a votive shovel, terracotta lantern, where children can actually touch and have an idea of these. It's a very, very, very nice museum. This is the weight for a loom in terracotta. So this is the first room, and I'll take you to see, it's a very quick overview, we're not having but definitely when you're in this part of the world, come to Borgoricco and see this museum. We'll go and have a look at the measurements over there. Here's the road building techniques. These are the instruments, the weight for measuring. My father's an architect. I've actually used these same instruments with my father. The lead weights. And here we can have a look at the road building technique. In fact, many of the roads around here are actually built on top of Roman roads. So, how the Roman roads were built. And here we have a series of archeological artefacts, nails, a scythe, animal bones. These are remains, no, not even, these are, let's see, it says here. These are the bones from a tomb, not animal bones. These are from a incinerated. Shows you how the urn, in this case here, or a normal grave. And here's the Roman units of measurement. The thumb, digitus, so the inch, the palm, the foot, the cubitus, and the gradus. So we'll go and see another room now. Instruments, the weight for building, for measuring. I'm used to, my father's an architect. The tomb of a horse, which was discovered here in Borgoricco. The ancient Veneti were famous for their horses, and it's even recorded that they won they were winners of one of the Olympic Games in 440 BC. So the tomb of this 12-year-old horse, which was apparently sacrificed was discovered here in Borgoricco. And the Veneti, the horses of the Veneti were small and very agile. You can see this is a 12-year-old horse and it's pretty small. In this room we also have all sorts of panels on agriculture, animal husbandry, the reconstruction of a plough, various tools over here. Here it explains how the plots of land were assigned to the veterans of the legions, the cult of the borders, the various agricultural gods, which were then Christianized in the cult of saints. To this day you can see the various altars at the side of the road. And here we have some artefacts, the blades of Roman tools, iron blades of Roman tools, the Roman period. Reconstructions of agricultural tools that could be used to this day. The plough is incredible. And here we've got the wooden base of a wellhead. And this is an area very rich in water. To this day, well water is fundamental in agriculture, and in certain cases in this area and in the area of Treviso, the deep wells are actually used for household water. So you have your own well water and you don't have to pay the water bill, which is very good. So we'll move into and see another part of the museum. We have some artifacts that date back to the pre-Roman times. So we're talking about the 13th and 12th century before Christ. So we're Bronze Age. Here we have a bronze axe head, a spearhead. Here's some fossils as well of ammonites, deer horns here. Here's a votive bronze wee shovel. And here's reconstructions of the populations. We're talking about the Stone Age populations that lived here, hunting and making stone tools. And here we have also a panel on the history of Borgoricco throughout the centuries. And you can see this is an ancient map of the 1700s. This is a Austro-Hungarian military map, Kriegskarte, 1798-1805, which shows military map showing the territory of Borgoricco, where we can see the evidence of the Roman grid, the intact Roman grid. Here, you see the right angles. As we move instead further west, we see that the Roman grid loses its regularity. And here we've got other artifacts of this is early Middle Ages. This is a bronze infantry sabre of 1843, and other elements of late medieval 16th century pottery. These are all things that were found in this area. Coins, remains of this is a small glass vessel of between the 6th and the 8th century Anno Domini. And here it shows what happened after the reduction in population and how come this, in some parts, here it shows you we are here, the X's are, right, and how the layout of fields changed. And also between the 14th and the 15th century there were massive floods and a big reduction in population, and the woods grew again. But then the Venetians, who came to this part of Veneto, was dominated after by Venice, and they reclaimed the land for agriculture. Well, we'll continue the visit to the museum in the section dedicated to all the construction materials. We have pipes, we've got roof tiles, which if you go to central Italy, you'll still find Roman style roof tiles in use. In northern Italy, we have the coppo still in use, but only the rounded, the semicircular part, not the flat tile. These Roman bricks. And we've got a series of other showcases with the domestic religious cults, votive hands. Here we've got games, tabula lusoria, fragments of house furniture, the oil lamps, reconstruction of a bed, a wee table. Here's the Roman cosmetics. Look at this pair of tweezers. They could be still used to this day, even for modelling. Here's oils and balsams. Here we have dedicated to clothing. There's a brooch, series of fibulae made in bronze, buttons and ivory. Here we have all the examples of footwear, the calighe. Here we have the loom for weaving loom, reconstruction here. You'll see that better when I turn round. Here's the weights, bone weaving tools. Here's at the table, mensa. Here's a reconstruction of the fireplace. And all sorts of, we have photographs from Pompeii, which is a very important archaeological source. The Roman eating habits and the different type of, the pans could be used to this day. Here's the mills, hand mills. And here there are local archaeological digs in the Villa dell'Ex Fondo Rossi. Here's an element of square section piping, water piping, because the Romans had running water. Here's a wellhead, and there we can see the reconstruction of the loom. And now we'll go and see the next room, which is the final room of the museum. There's another wellhead over there. Let me just get there. And now we're in the last room of the museum, where we see a reconstruction of a brick kiln or furnace, and where it shows us how they made the bricks. Bricks are still made like this. They're fired in a furnace or in a kiln, and we can see the actual kiln in here. This is a furnace underneath. Romans would burn wood or even charcoal. They knew how to make charcoal. They made charcoal. And here we see a cutout of how it was made. The insulation made with these small terracotta bowls to act as a insulation to make sure the heat would stay inside and not spread outside. And here we can see in this room another very interesting, there's a wellhead here, a series of other decorative fragments of in brickwork. This was more archaeological digs, and here we see a series of, here's a wellhead, another Roman period wellhead, and there's the last, here we also have a series just to show you the coins, all the Roman coins. I'm just going to pass from the Republican period to, you can pause and look at them if you're interested, all the way Antonino Pio to the end 4th century. Reconstruction of the scale, Roman scales. Now I remember scales like those used in the markets in the centre of Padova, the vegetable market, before they had the obligatory electronic cash registers and electronic scales. These kind of scales, called stagge in Italian. Stadera, not staggia, stadera, sorry, stadera. Stadera. Staggia is something else. Ancient coins. And we finish off with the amphorae. So Roman amphorae were used to transport olive oil, also preserved food, the famous Roman fish paste, etc. We see here how they were stacked in the ships, all the various manufacturing marks, and also on the amphorae. Amphorae then would be reused, because after you use them a few times they were no longer suitable for foodstuffs, and so they would be reused in many. Sometimes it would be actually just thrown away, like in the hill of Testaccio in Rome, which is actually an amphorae rubbish dump. But they could also be reused, for example, for draining ground, for foundations. They would be placed upside down to form an air cushion in cemeteries, or even reused as coffins, for example, for children. And you can find, in archaeological digs in Padova, where the ground is very wet, these upside down amphorae are typically found. So quite a lot of them. I've seen them at my school. There was some amphorae were hanging up on the wall that had been found during digs. So that's the end of the visit. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments. The structure where the museum is housed is very interesting, because as well as a museum, there's a theatre, cultural centre here in Borgoricco. Very, very interesting. So if you do come to Padova, let me know, and this is definitely a place to visit. Cheerio, and see you next time. Here we go. Tito, la delizia del genere umano. Apparently was very nice, a very, very nice emperor. At least this is what they said. It didn't last long. Cheerio, and see you next time.